Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to talk about school safety. I present as a doctor, a healthcare professional, as a father, and as a representative that is open to new ideas from people that are really attempting to do something to try to make our schools safer and better for our children. That's why I want to share with you what a couple organizations in my district are doing in an attempt to tackle some of the lesser explored potential factors contributing to violence within our schools. It begins with an organization called Screen Education. Screen Education is a Cincinnati-based organization that seeks to understand scientifically how technology and social media impacts kids.
Mercier is the mind behind Screen Education, a group that's doing some major research on screen time's effects and addiction, particularly in teens. Do they wish that they weren't addicted? Do they wish that their parents would take it away and they could have a break? Like, what do they want?
Well, and that's been a major area of focus in our research. So we found, for example, a national survey we did in June, 65% of teens said they wish they had a greater ability to self-limit their screen time.
Recent research by Screen Education on 12 to 16-year-olds at Camp Livingston in Bennington, Indiana, found that students were largely happier by being deprived of their smartphones. They were more engaged and connected to one another as people when removed from the cyber world of drama, gossip, and aggression.
Parents, you probably see your child doing this all the time. Summer break is fast approaching, and you might think that means more time with their heads buried in their phones. Well, get this, a new survey of more than 1,000 children at sleepaway camps shows the vast majority were glad to get away from their phone.
YMCA Camp Ernst was the first place Screen Education went to survey kids about leaving their screens behind. Michael Mercier says the national survey conducted last summer found that lots of kids feel like Lexi does.
They were actually thrilled to escape their phones for 2 weeks. And a lot of them were, believe it or not, actually stunned at how well they realized you get to know other people if you actually talk to them in person.
69% of the kids surveyed said they would be happier if they could spend less time on their cell phones each day.
They wish they could control it, but they can't.
And you can think of this really as a suite of seminars. So we've developed 4 distinct seminars, and each seminar is tailored or customized to address each of the major stakeholders in the school ecosystem. So we have one seminar for teachers, one for administrators, one for students, and one for parents. And the idea is that we want to teach each of these groups how to work together as a cohesive unit to address the problem, because that's really required to address this problem. So essentially what we're offering here is a way for a school to launch or initiate a program of culture change at that school.
So they're just continuously using their phones, right? Why is that? There are 2 reasons on the left side. Number one, the content is addictive. And there are two aspects of the content that makes it addictive. Number one, they've figured out very effectively how to get kids to channel their fundamental human drives. And I'm talking about like the drive to compete, the drive to achieve, the drive to master new skills. The drive to connect with other people socially, the drive to escalate in social status, that desire, right? The drive to tell stories or engage in narrative, right? That's what YouTube and Netflix are about. It's taking in other people's narratives, right? So there's an aspect to this online environment kids are in that's very gratifying for them. It helps them channel those drives, and it feels good. At the same time, it's hyper customizable. Like, you know how these platforms work. You basically customize everything so that you have this continuous feed of information and content that meets your most unique, personal, deepest passions and desires, right? You combine that irresistible content with unrestricted access. So this wouldn't be a problem, having addictive content. It wouldn't be a problem if there were natural limits on kids' ability to access it, but there aren't. Because we shrunk the computer to a pocket size and we added wireless access, so they're basically able to access addictive content whenever they want to. So that's the essence of the problem. This is a way to think about it. Basically, what we're allowing to happen is taking our kids' vital energy that we used to channel to physical world, real world accomplishment, and we're allowing it to be siphoned off into cyber world accomplishment. That's really what's happening. And when you look at it that way, you think it's really, in a way, unconscionable, right? It really demands that somebody do something about it. But back to that question, why would a school do this, right? Why would a school be the one to address it? And that's because schools witness this. It actually is corroding the environment at school. And that's why so many schools are starting to address this. They deal with it every single day. And I want to try to, if you could see it from the teacher's perspective, okay? This is what I've heard from teachers, okay? So just think about, you know, as parents, we might not know what's actually going on, right? But these are the things that I've heard, and I'm sure there's more that I haven't heard, right? But these are the things that teachers are telling us they see every single day. Kids distracted in the classroom, kids are performing poorly on tests, and they know why. They know it has to do with the phones. They witness the social tensions that erupt because of the nastiness on social media and group texting. They encounter kids who are emotionally distressed, maybe because they feel isolated or because they've been cyberbullied and it's upsetting to them. They've been shamed publicly. They see kids who are deprived of sleep. I have a teacher that I've worked with actually who said he has a couple of students who are gamers. They stay up on a school night till 3 or 4 in the morning and then get up and go to school. And they witness kids not handing in homework. So, you know, if you look at it, and there's more, you know, teachers often complain about, I had a teacher say, it's horrible. They walk into my classroom, they all have their heads down, they don't look up, they don't talk to each other, they don't look at each other. I say hello to individuals, and they don't respond. She just feels like it's just this horrible environment to be in. And you hear the same thing in the cafeteria. You know, there's like social isolation at school. So this is what teachers witness, this is what administrators witness, and that's why they feel like, you know, we have to do something about it. You know, let alone the fact that, you know, they're just not achieving and developing themselves to the potential we feel they could. If a school wants to address this issue, there's no way they can affect the addictiveness of the content, right? Only Silicon Valley can do that. So the only option the school is left with is to deal with this problem of unrestricted access to the addictive content. So that's why schools are coming to this conclusion that they need to take sort of an emergency action and create these policies that don't allow kids to use phones at school. Is that, how do we get kids to internalize the virtue that this policy represents? And here's what I'm trying to get at here. On one level, you could just look at Crestwood's no phone policy as simply being, it's a rule, it's a restriction, right? You got to follow the rule, right? Which is fine. That's what it is, right? But if you think about it, once, you know, after 1 to 2 months, this is going to be normal here, right? It's going to be the normal state of things. Then there's going to be an opportunity to go beyond. We can look at the restriction as sort of a foundation upon which we can do sort of build other things that we do with this idea of spending less time using your phones for recreation. And we can essentially try to get them to internalize that virtue. So what's the virtue behind the policy? The virtue behind the policy is it's valuable, it's important for you to spend less time on screens consuming entertainment content, right? That's the virtue. If we can get kids to internalize that, not just view it as this external limit, right, but internalize it, then it's going to be more likely that these kids can develop the ability to self-limit. So here's where I'm going with this. You can essentially view the policy as being part of a larger program of culture change, right? And you could look up models of culture change. I've seen models with 9 different variables. I reduced this to 3. But basically, if you combine policy, which is saying this is a standard of behavior, right? We want to abide by this standard of behavior. This is the ideal. Combine that with education, which is basically to repeatedly over time explain to kids, here's why we're implementing this policy. The phones hurt you in this way. We want you to be healthy in all these levels and achieve and develop, you know, reach your potential. So education can be a valuable component combined with, I wrote their values. And what I mean there is just finding ways to repeatedly over time explain to kids, instill in them this value, this virtue of spending less time on phones. And that, you do that through rituals, right? I mean, there are different ways people do that, right? But I want to show you that, I feel like there's the potential. The policy in itself is fantastic. If you just view this as a policy, it's great and it needs to be done. But there's really the opportunity to make something bigger of this, and everybody can play a role in doing that. Multitasking is a big deal, and I would say if you were to take one thing to make one incremental change leaving here tonight, that would be, if you could get your kids to not multitask, that would be huge, right? Because multitasking is one of the things that fragments attention, and all the research is showing when you jump back and forth, you're almost like exponentially less effective and productive on each task, right? Because you have to start over again each time you shift attention. So if you could get your kids to just not multitask, and I'm thinking of things like doing homework, right? So, we've all seen kids doing their homework and they've got their laptop open, they've got a YouTube video on with their earplugs in, they're responding to text message and social media notifications, and they say that they're doing their homework, right? So if there could be some rule where the phone is off, no earbuds allowed, while you're doing your homework, that would be huge, I think. That's one simple change. And to also explain to them, why this is an issue, that it really hurts your productivity. But what we're hearing is that detox experiences can really be transformational. So that, I mentioned I did a survey of 1,100 kids who went to overnight camp for 4 weeks on average. 62% said that they felt that not having access to their phone while they're at camp made them less dependent on their phone than their friends who don't go to camp. So these detoxes, they awaken you. What happens is when you don't have your phone, you migrate to a new state of mind, and you reflect back on, you look at like how you feel now, and reflect back on how you felt when your mind was saturated with technology, and you start to awaken to the problems it's causing you, and you start to see how distorted your perspective is. So it really is an awakening, potentially transformational experience that can result in long-term change.
So the stakeholder environment is students, teachers, other teachers, administrators, and parents. So, and the issue here is within a given school, there might be, for each stakeholder group, a full spectrum of attitudes and views regarding this issue. And people on the opposite ends of the spectrum are going to be opposed. So, for example, if you're a teacher, you might find that there are other teachers that feel like you. They want to address the problem, right? But then there are other teachers who really don't care about the issue. They don't think it's a problem. They just feel like, well, students have changed. It's a different time. Or even beyond that, they're actually part of the problem. I've had a lot of young people say, well, we have a no-phone policy in my school. You're not supposed to use your phone in the classroom, but the teacher uses their phone in the classroom. So I had one girl in the focus group say, in those classes where the teacher doesn't respect the rule, I don't feel that I have to respect the rule. But in the other classes where the teacher respects the rule, I respect the rule.